So, in review, here's where we are so far, right? We've been kind of dealing with the forearms on down. The forearms are very important not because of the forearms are very important because of what they do to the hand. The power for your hand, you've got muscles in your hand, but the power for your hand comes to the forearms. All of my flexors are on the anterior side, and they go to my wrist and fingers and thumb and pull them down. Boom. Flexors, right? All of my flexors that are on that anterior side share a common tendon and come off the medial epicondyle of the humerus. This means that all my flexors cross over my elbow, which means, yes, their job is to move my wrist and fingers, but they actually can move my elbow. So when you're doing bicep curls, you're really trying to work your biceps and your brachialis, but you do end up working your forearm flexors some. They do cross over and they actually can cause a flexion of the elbow. Then we also learned that all my extensors for my fingers and wrist and thumb live on the posterior side of my forearm, and they share a common tendon and all insert on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus and also cross over the elbow. And I'm telling you this because if somebody has elbow problems, you should work their flexors and extensors too, even though it's not a hand problem, right? So we learned all that. And we learned that essentially golfer's elbow has problems with the medial epicondyle and tennis elbow has problems with the lateral epicondyle, and you don't have to play golf or tennis to get those things. They're usually from tension and the impact of the ball and things like that, overuse kind of injuries and such. So, but then we learned that sure, the power comes from here, but you need fine articulating muscles to help balance that power and pull it just right and do minute detail stuff and all that kind of thing. And so we learned about the thumb. And we learned that the thumb alone, because it does so many cool things, because it can flex, extend, adduct, abduct, opinate, and circumduct, that the thumb has 8 muscles associated with it. It's got 4 that live halfway up the forearm at the most. They're on the distal half of the forearm. You've got a flexor longus and back. You've got, I'm sorry, can't so clear. You've got an extensor longus and brevis and back. Thank you, Miss Dimitra. Her face told me, like, we're going off the rails, Tapscott. Slow down. Extensor longus and brevis and back, and an abductor longus and back that pulls the thumb out. And you've got a flexor longus in front. The point is you got 4, right about here basically, 4 thumb muscles right here. They like to grab onto the inner osseous membrane and the radius and the ulna, depending on which ones you're talking about, which is why we work between people's bones in here. We care about the stuff between the bones. We're all trying to get into places where people can't get. Scratch itches they can't reach. I've had many clients say that. So anyway, those are the 4 thumb muscles. Then we learned there's 4 up here in the hand. I'm grabbing all 4 of them right now. The webbing here we learned was your adductor adductor pollicis. We also learned that it doesn't just connect to the second metacarpal. It also connects to the third metacarpal, so you actually work between these 2 as well when you're trying to loosen it up. Then we learned that there are 3 thumb muscles that make up your thenar eminence, which is your thumb pad. Your pinky pad is called your hypothenar eminence, below the thumb pad. Anyway, your thenar eminence is made out of an abductor pollicis brevis, a flexor pollicis brevis, and an opinator pollicis. And now we're about to go to the hand and learn that the pinky has the same darn thing going on. It's got a abductor digiti minimi, a flexor digiti minimi, and an opinator digiti minimi. And we're also going to learn about muscles between the bones here. We're going to learn about a palmar interossei, a dorsal interossei, and some lumbricals. Lumbricals are actually on the palmar side. We'll learn about that too. I'm going to show you slides about that. And that will cover the hand. And that is what allows you to do all this amazing stuff that you do with your hand, along with your amazing brain and all sorts of other stuff. Mr. Craven, please.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here thinking, like...
That's good.
Yeah, right?
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So, like, the thumb can do, like, a ton of different movements, but, like, the joint is, it's a saddle joint, right?
Yes.
So, is there a reason why it wasn't a ball and socket? Like, if it was a ball and socket, it wouldn't be able to grip as well, or like it would
Well,
require less muscles or something?
yeah. Do you mean can I surmise a reason? And I can't.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because who knows what the master plan was, kind of thing.
I think you do.
Uh, anyway, I have no idea, and I don't have something like, oh, well, you get more strength by doing X, Y, Z, or I don't have an answer like that. Yeah,
Do you think that like it wouldn't work? Because it does all the movements, like it moves in like pretty much like every plane.
So again, this is one of those things that like it depends on what you believe in as a bigger theory. Like if you believe in evolution, then we were four-footed creatures at some time, and my hands evolved from my feet, and it would make sense that my feet joints would just slowly over time kind of change into this saddle joint and be able to wiggle in multiple directions, as opposed to creating a whole new ball joint.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I can't think of a structural answer like, oh, a ball joint wouldn't be strong enough. No, I think it might be. I don't know. I don't know that saddle joints are stronger. And the real reason it's hard to have this discussion is the only saddle joint I can think of is in the thumb, and the only ball joint I can think of is your hips and shoulder. So they're just very unique joints in your body to begin with. You know, and then I wonder about the wrist too. Your wrist can do a circumduction because of 8 gliding joints, 8 rocks. You've seen your carpal bones. They look like rocks, and they're kind of gliding over each other. Why does that work well? I don't even understand. So my answer is I have no answer, sir. I told you no new information. I'm tapped out, man.
You know what? That's my bad. You're
Thank
right.
you. I don't know how many times to tell you. You have to figure everything out. Actually, the cool thing is, by the way,
you're 100% right.
don't embarrass me. By the way, you guys will figure some stuff out in massage that somebody else hasn't really ever figured out before. You'll be working on somebody. You'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know I could." I can't tell you because it hasn't happened. But you will figure out things and moves and kind of anatomy nuances that other people didn't figure out. It's very, very cool. So stay alert in your massage because there's a lot to find if you keep exploring. Okay, let's share this slide presentation. And let's look at essentially 6 muscles. 3 in the pinky and 3 in the between the bones, basically. Okay, so here are our beautiful hands here. We said yesterday this was extensor retinaculum. We're going to be learning about these dorsal interossei muscle here in a second. They're actually sticking there, through there. Remember the other thing we learned about that I forgot to review with you was that essentially the 3 opponens muscles of your thumb and the 3 Digiti Minimi muscles of your pinky pad, so your thenar eminence and your hypothenar eminence, share the flexor retinaculum as an origin. And remember, that was really great because you've created 2 handles that you can stretch the flexor retinaculum with to enlarge the carpal tunnel. You now have a way to approach carpal tunnel syndrome. And remember we said, but don't assume it's just carpal tunnel no matter what they tell you. Even if the doctor says we're sure it's carpal tunnel, that doesn't mean they don't have some mild pinching of a nerve further up the arm. So we would work the carpals, all the forearm flexors and extensors, and we work around the epicondyles, lateral and medial of the humerus, the distal ones, and we would work up the arm, and then we'd work under the pectoralis minor and the subclavius, and kind of try to loosen up the clavicle itself. And you can, by the way, you can grab a clavicle and work around it. Do it gently, by the way, people freak out. And get up into the scalenes and work all that out. And you might as well just do general neck and shoulder at that point. But that's a really good approach for any arm problem, just about, you know. Okay, cool. Moving right along. Let's go on and look at this. Okay, so let's look at the lumbricals of the hand. They are surface muscles found on your palmar side. So when I'm in anatomical position, if you hit my palms, these are some of the first muscles that you hit. Basically, when you hit somebody's palm, you hit a lot of palmar fascia, and you hit a lot of tendons going to stuff. But you'll remember this from the foot. So the origin of the lumbricals is the flexor digitorum profundus. And remember on your foot, the origin of the lumbricals was the flexor digitorum longus. So they're very, very similar. And just like on your foot, they go up and underneath and hook onto the extensor, really extensor tendons or aponeuroses on the dorsal surface. So they connect your front to your back. They connect your front to your back. And that's why they can kind of flex and extend, because when they pull, they kind of make you scrunch your fingers. So you guys should all love your lumbricals. Because when you try to extend your phalanges but flex your metacarpal phalangeal joints, so when you try to extend it's very hard to understand, but when you try to extend your phalanges here and bend this at the same time, what you really end up doing is getting ready to poke. You've kind of locked your fingers because their fingers are trying to open out this way, but they're trying to bend down this way. And it's one of the ways you guys lock your fingers when you're doing massage. You use lumbricals quite a bit. Don't get me wrong, you lock your extensors and flexors on your forearm too. But these guys help keep your fingers straight when you are rubbing people and doing your pokey stuff. I know our massages aren't pokey, but you know what I mean. You are pressing. Massage therapists actually tend to be very, very strong in a very strange way, where their fingers are very strong for pressing. And these guys help you do just that, because in a way they're trying to extend and flex the fingers at the same time. So they help give extra strength to that. Miss Carrillo, please talk to me.
I reckon shoot.
That's okay. I understand. It's new. This is new for all of us. Yeah.
So I recognize on the fourth digit. Is this the bipennate muscle? I forget what it's called. Type of muscle.
It is bipennate. Yeah.
So is that why it's able to do, probably because of the two muscle fibers, it's able to do the multiple actions like the extension and flexion?
Can you repeat what she just said?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, and I had to really pause for a long time to think about it. So what she's saying is, she's looking at the picture. Let me show you guys. She's looking at the picture, and she's saying, hey, this muscle here is a bipennate muscle. Now, we haven't talked about unipennate or bipennate since the beginning of class because it's not too important to our discussions. But bipennate muscles mean the fibers go off in two different directions like this. And I'm going to stop sharing here because I need to make an example too. Bipennate, everybody, are really good for pulling really heavy things. And here's why. Miss Carrillo's going to come up here and help me show you.
Okay, it's my question.
It's your question. Well, I actually need you too. Come on. But nobody's going to see you, strangely enough. So, if you just stand there.
Yep.
Kind of back here, and we'll try not to knock over the coffee. Go this way more. Good. Okay. So, if you come over here, if we're both muscles, it's one thing to have a muscle pulling like this, right? But if we're both grabbing onto a rope, and you're kind of pulling towards you and I'm pulling towards me, but it makes her a very strong pull. So bipennate is really for strength. It's muscles where you really need a small little muscle to be doing an awful lot of stuff. And it's like you got two magical elves. Remember I always say you picture the elves pulling on a rope? Well, we got two elves pulling on this rope. So that's what bipennate's for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, but we're not done. That was the first part of your question. You just don't get to run off after asking that stuff like that. The other thing that's really hard to see is this muscle. This is her hand. She'll be the hand. I'm going to be the muscle. This muscle kind of comes from her palm underneath and grabs on up top. And so when it pulls, it kind of pulls this finger up like this, very strangely, at the end. But it tries to pull the whole finger down at the knuckle. And in doing so, it kind of locks your finger. It makes it kind of lock out. It's very hard to explain, but it's up on top, kind of pulling it up, and yet it's on the bottom still, pulling down the base of the finger. Let me do it with this one, maybe. Here's her pointy. I come up from underneath, I grab here, and so when it pulls, it kind of pulls the tip of her finger up. I'm exaggerating. Oh, these are really flexible fingers. Like little broken crayons here. And it pulls down the whole finger. And believe it or not, that action together helps her lock down her finger if she wants to. So I hope that answered it. Yeah. And that's what your lumbricals are all about. So the bipennant was a really good catch, but the bipennant's probably to give them extra strength, and because of the way they're sewn into the other tendons and such. And the fact is, it's really because they come up from the palm, sneak up over the top, and grab on up top. So they want to pull down to the palm, but because they're grabbing on top, they also tend to lift up too at the same time. And they allow me to get kind of pokey with my fingers. Yeah. And they obviously, can work with the flexor digitorum profundus as well, because that's what they're coming off of. Very, very, very similar to the lumbricals in your feet. They come off of flexor digitorum tendons, just like in your feet. And so, by the way, actually, if you're talking about lumbricals, today you don't have to do this because we know we're talking about the hand, but if you just walked in and said, I need my lumbricals worked, you have to say lumbricals of the hand or lumbricals of the feet, right? So they're, yeah. And they're, by the way, found basically in the same places on those objects, on those hands and feet, right? Whether it's in the plantar part of the foot or the palmar part of the hand. All right, let me keep sharing. Does that make sense, everybody? Kinda? Sorta? Okay. And again, by the way, a lot of this hand stuff I bring up, the actions are super important. I think they're super important, but I also hope you walk away going, oh my gosh, hands are really detailed. I need to be massaging all of that little stuff in the hands there. Pinching the meat off the bone. And hands, by the way, it's not, and feet too, it's not just the muscle, it's all the fascia that holds them together. You want to get in there and just grind them away. Get all the meat off the bone. I always pretend when I'm working hands that I'm on a desert island and this hand is all I have to eat and I have to scrape all the muscle off the bone. I know it's really not a very healing kind of thing to think, but I just sit there and scrape it and try to get all that stuff off. And the other cool thing about hands is on most people, I mean, if somebody's very elderly, yes, but on most people, your full hand strength can't make their hand sore the next day, right? So I worked on your thumb pretty hard yesterday.
Oh yeah, it's tender.
It's tender today?
Yep.
Oh, everything I just told you is a lie. Never mind. Okay. Does it feel good today?
Yes.
Good. You didn't have to say that. You can. Yeah. All right. Okay. Moving right along. I think it's hard to make a hand sore, but apparently I did it. So, okay, we got the lumbricals of the hand. They are on the palmar side. If I peel them off, we will get to the palmar interossei. If I go in even deeper, we'll get to the dorsal interossei, but you might as well just go to the back of the hand to get the dorsal interossei. So it's like dorsal interossei, palmar interossei, lumbricals. Or lumbricals, palmar interossei, dorsal interossei, right? So if it's a ham or a hand sandwich, the bread is the lumbricals and the dorsal interossei. The meat or the cheese is the palmar interossei. I think I've taken that way too far. Let's go to the next slide. Here's the palmar interossei, though. So we've lifted off the lumbricals, which also means we've lifted off, by the way, all sorts of stuff. All sorts of palmar aponeuroses, the flexor digitorum profundus, and the superficial flexor digitorum, and all that stuff. So we're now between the bones. And these help to adduct the, what do I want to say, the fingers. Actually pull them back in. So again, it's not so much that that's super duper important in and of itself, but you need it for hand integrity. So again, when you guys are poking, you don't want your fingers going, whoop, kind of going all over the place, right? You want to pull them in. And so this helps to adduct, to pull in your hands. And yes, it says it helps to flex or extend the thumb a little bit and all this little weird stuff. I would not worry about that. Here's why I wouldn't worry about that. Because you're going to accidentally massage the palmar interossei that's by the thumb every time you massage the other thumb muscles. You can't miss it. It's right there too. So they're all mixed in together. But anyway, these help to pull your fingers together. I have never once in my career had somebody come in where I had to specifically work these and nothing else. But there's been many times where hands have been tight and such, and I'm working all of these types of muscles in the hand to open the hand back up. Because ideally, a person's metacarpals, these bones here, should flex back and forth. They really should. They should have movement in them. And you will get people that play piano and play guitar that really care about this stuff. So, cool. So that's the palmar interossei. Yes, Miss Abelos, please.
Yes, sir. So it's not a part of the thenar eminence, the palmar interossei, but it's kind of in there.
You know what, Miss Abelos? Once again, you're being very astute. It really is part of the thenar eminence. It's in there. Yeah. I know I didn't make it a big deal. It's a very tiny muscle, but you're right. Like, if we want to get really technical, we should throw it in there with the thenar eminence. It's there. Yeah. So thank you. It's not the way we normally teach it, but she's right. It's in your thumb pad. And it will be included with the other three muscles. It's tiny and it's deep, but if you're in there against the bone, Miss Abelos is exactly right. So, in that sense, you've really got that fourth muscle there. Yeah. Very nice. This class makes me think. Okay. And then you've got dorsal interossei, which they're showing from the back of the hand because that's how you'd really get to them. You can directly access these. If you rub the back of somebody's hand, it's like rubbing the top of their foot, by the way. We use a lot less pressure. Backs of hands and tops of feet take a lot less pressure than palms and plantar sections of feet. But these help to pull your fingers apart. These help to pull your fingers apart. So they often work in conjunction. Like, yes, my dorsal interossei are helping me do this, and my palmar interossei are helping me do this, but quite often I use them both at the same time to just lock down my hand. Right? So when I'm going down somebody's body and doing an effleurage of their back, it's very likely that I am flexing my palmar interossei, my dorsal interossei, and my lumbricals along with my forearm extensors and flexors at the same time to lock my wrists. But the point is, that's what I'm doing. So remember, some of our muscles are meant to move us, and these do. These are meant to move you. But we often will use these together to lock you. So these help to lock your fingers down when you're not trying to abduct or adduct, but you're trying to actually lock them. You tell your body to do both. It tries to pull your finger out, it tries to pull it back in, that locks it right in there. So it's very common to actually have, like, you guys have probably felt it since you're a massage therapist now, where your hand is sore from massage. Inside the bones and things like that. That's these muscles getting tired of you actually using your hands in this very vigorous fashion. And that's the dorsal interossei. Yeah? Yeah. Cool. So, we're going to take a break in a second before we talk about the exciting world of the Digiti and Minimi. But, let us review. If you are looking at the palm of somebody's hand, and you peel back the skin, which don't do because the clients won't come back to you if you do that. But if you were to peel back the skin, you would see, by the way, a whole bunch of flexor tendons coming from the forearm, right? And you'd see what's called palmar aponeuroses, which is like sheet-like tendon woven through this hand to give it integrity. But if you peeled back all that, we would get to the lumbricals. And the lumbricals would be here coming from this side, but going to the dorsal side of the hand. And they help to flex and extend, really, the digits, depending on how you want to look at that, at the same time, really. And if we went deeper than the lumbricals, we would get to the palmar interossei that are actually between my metacarpals. And then if I went deeper still, going all the way to the back, I would get to the dorsal interossei, right? And the dorsal interossei help me to abduct, and the palmar interossei help me to adduct, and the lumbricals help me to flex and extend, depending on which joints you're talking about here. But all of them working together can help me to lock down my fingers. And I use them separately too, when I want to be like, hey, all that stuff. But the fact is, quite often we're using them all together to kind of lock down our hands. And that's the hand sandwich. This lumbrical palmar interossei, dorsal interossei. Or dorsal interossei, scrape it away, palmar interossei. Scrape that away, go all the way down to lumbricals. Yeah? All right, I think that is a good place to take a break. And then, now, granted, there are something like 640 muscles in the body, and to be honest with you, in this class, we only cover like about 106 or something. That said, by the way, in a way, we cover about 200 because a lot of the muscles we cover have stuff on the left and right side of your body, or things like that. But still, we actually leave out about 2/3 of the muscles in your body because they're muscles we can't massage. They're internal muscles and things that we don't really deal with. But we definitely hit the highlight of beyond the most common muscles of the body, and that's what we're finishing off with the hands here. Ms. DeBose, you had a question.
Yes, it's totally off topic, but I just wanted to ask Mr. Matrix, before I put my eyelashes on, are we taking our pictures today?
Ms. Dimitrik, this is an extremely important question.
So important.
I'm not sure Ms.
That's how
Dimitrik
good
is
I
taking
am.
us off mute because I see her up there, or if she's frozen. Oh no, she's not frozen. Ms. Dimitrik! Hey!
Sorry, I just got a call from my bank. But
Oh.
ask the question.
Okay, well,
Or you can give me the Women's History Month pass on it.
it's not a question from me. It's a question from a fellow woman this month.
Oh, okay, well, I'll answer that.
Okay, go ahead, Miss DeBose, please.
It's nothing major, Mr. Matrix. I just wanted to know before I put my eyelashes on, are we taking our pictures today?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Wednesday.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, very important. Yeah, save your eyelashes for tomorrow. Okay.
She was milking out
See?
so hard.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, everybody, so when we last left, we were talking about the hands. We talked about the the lumbricals of the hand, and deeper to them would be the palmar interossei, and really deep to them would be the dorsal interossei, because that's an anatomical position that would be deep. Of course, by the time you're that deep, you might as well flip the hand over and just directly access the dorsal interossei, because they are actually the muscles. They're the meat that you feel between your metacarpals here, these bones in your hand. That's what you're feeling is the dorsal interossei. Yeah? Yeah. Okay, let's move along and let's talk about Digiti, Minimi. Yes. All right. I can't even believe it's called that. Sometimes I feel like it sounds like I'm making this up. Yes. Mr. Ma, how are you doing there, buddy? You okay? Okay, I'm just checking.
I'm very good, thanks,
Okay.
sir.
I don't mind that you're kicked back. I just want to make sure you hadn't fallen asleep. Yeah, it was good. You just looked very awesome. Thanks, sir. Okay, so we're back to the hand here. Somebody massaging the hand here. I actually try to twist the hand bones a little bit when I'm massaging to get between the metacarpals. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say today. Try to always put in movement. You're trying to wiggle bones free from other bones, right? You'd like their hands to be like newborn baby hands when you're done. Okay. Yes, Miss Carrillo, please.
I wanted to say before I forgot, the part you did massage on my hand, it's not tender. It's a webbing that was tender.
Oh yeah, I tore into that. Yeah.
So I don't even think you did it. I think I had Mr. Jones do it. So
Also, it's Mr. Jones didn't do a good job.
no, it didn't say that.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. The stuff I did feels great, and the stuff he did feels bad.
Oh my
Is that what you're saying? Sorry, Mr. Jones. She's kind of rude sometimes. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Okay. Here is your hypothenar eminence. The eminence below the thenar one, right? Hypothenar eminence, your pinky pad. And we said it too has an opponens, a flexor, and an abductor, just like the thumb. Essentially, you just swap out the word digiti minimi for pollicis, right? So just like I had a pollicis abductor, it was brevis, and a flexor pollicis brevis, and an opponens pollicis, I have an abductor digiti minimi. It's not brevis because there is no longus. A flexor digiti minimi brevis, and an opponens digiti minimi. So I've got 3 muscles that make up this pinky pad. And by the way, I think the best way to work the pinky pad is to literally pinch it. Pinch that pad of skin, like to get in there and just pinch it right off the bone. It's sitting out there. It's sitting out there like a little mound, and it's just so easy to get. And just kind of peel it off the bone. I find the last metatarsal, roll off that and squish down into it. You can get very, very aggressive, make it turn red. And you can also just pinch this whole area right here. And it feels really good. And remember, if we roll it out, and we roll the thumb out at the same time, we expand the flexor retinaculum, which is the top of the carpal tunnel. Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, Ms. Carrillo, please.
I think I blinked out. Can you explain the hypo part of this? Because it does say like below, but these muscles feel very superficial instead of deep.
So why do they use the word hypo?
Like, because it feels very superficial. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Below.
I think they literally mean if I'm holding my hand like this, it's
Okay.
below, which is, I mean,
All right, I was thinking like this. And,
they could have called it the medial thenar eminence and the lateral thenar eminence, right? But that's why they call it. They mean it's below the thumb pad, even though it's not exactly. But if I'm holding my arm out like this, kind of an anatomical position, then thenar eminence, hypothenar eminence below it. That's where they're getting that from.
oh, okay. It's
Yeah.
not high fives, low fives.
No.
Hypo.
Yes. Hypo. Yeah. Not hyper.
Not hypo.
Hyper is above. Hypo is below. Yes, Miss Clayton. Talk to me.
So the bone or the fingers or the phalanges have no muscles in them, correct? It's just ligaments and fascia.
Yes, they have no muscle in the fingers. Yeah.
So is there something that feels especially good on the fingers considering they have no muscles?
Yes. Yes. So I'm so glad you asked. Let me stop sharing here. All right. So the one thing is, this is actually really important detail work. When we teach a continuing ed class on hands, we do this. So your phalanges are kind of triangularly shaped. Now, I'm going to explain that in a second, but I know it's really weird because there are no other triangles in the body and there's no triangulation anywhere in the body with your muscles or anything. I've never mentioned triangulation before. So I know this is very unusual, and triangles are not strong or anything, so crazy, right? But your phalanges actually are shaped like this. And here's what I mean. If you look at my finger here, the top of it, of the bone, would be like that, and the bone kind of comes down to a point like this. So it's a tiny triangle, all right, guys? It's a tiny triangle, but it's a triangle. And so the flat part's up here, and so if you find the top of the triangle and then come off it and then pinch in here, this meat feels very good to have pinched off the bone. You find the bone here and you pinch the meat down in here. And yes, I'm saying meat and there is no meat there, but there's a tremendous amount of fascia and it feels really good. It also feels good just to scrape it off that bone. Literally scrape stuff off there because that fascia gets sore and tired in there, but you're right, there's no muscle in there. And that's what I do. I do lots of, the hands and feet are the only place I do any pinching. But I do pinch there. So I find the bone on purpose, I fall off the bone and I pinch in. And that tends to feel very good. And you can scrape too. Scrape stuff off the bone. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, but yes, very much so.
Yes, thanks.
And just thinking about it, it's a very small shape, but it is a triangle. And so trying to kind of work down towards the palm side, going down there, is the way to do it. Coming down, yeah. Very cool. Any other? Go ahead. Yes, Ms. Avalos.
So when you're sorry, when you're bending your joints and your fingers, then are you pulling on fascia? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Like,
So do you mean how's the action occurring?
yes.
Yeah. So what's happening? Yes and yes. So what's happening when I bend my finger is lots of things, right? But let's take a simple example. The main action is coming from my forearm. My flexor digitorum profundus has wires that go all the way up here and attach to these fingers, right? And it actually flexes. It pulls those wires down, and those wires are fascia, as you just said. And it pulls them down, and that's where the action's coming from. And that's why actually usually when somebody moves their finger, you see their forearm moving. There's a little bit of forearm movement there. That's because this action is really coming from down here. So yes, that's going on. Then we also learned that, by the way, we have some extra muscles in our pinkies and thumb that can help with that action too. We've got lumbricals in here that can help with that action too. But you are right. They are grabbing onto either tendons or just general fascia wrapping around and pulling on that too. Your hands do, you're right, have webbing throughout them. So I hope that answered your question, but basically the quick answer was yes. Miss Carrillo?
So I do notice some people have thicker fingers, not the fat, because the fat's more like in here, but can the tendons get bigger then okay.
Yeah, so she's just noting that some people have really meaty hands, and they do. And that is most likely, I mean, you can carry fat in your hands. There's nothing wrong with that. So you could have hands with extra adipose tissue. But also, you're right. You'll notice lots of people that use their hands a lot. Those tendons and the fascia that supports that area tends to thicken up, so it gets stronger. And it doesn't thicken up quickly, by the way. Tendons and fascia take longer to thicken than muscle does. You can grow muscle actually faster than you can tendons and such, but they thicken over time and they stay thick for a long time. So, yeah, that's very common. People's fascia tells you a lot about what they've been doing with the last 20 years of their life. Their muscle might tell you a lot about what they've been doing with the last 6 months of their life or 3 months of their life, but their fascia tells you what they've been doing the last 20 years of their life. It really tends to retain quite a bit, and that's where you get people with thick hands. By the way, some people also have bigger hand bones to begin with, right? They're a bigger person, but you're feeling lots of extra meat around there, and most likely it's fascia. And let me remind everybody again, I keep saying fascia, fascia, fascia. Tendons, ligaments, retinaculum, aponeuroses, and fascia are really all the same thing. They're this kind of rubberized, steelized material that's made out of rubber filaments. It's not really rubber, but rubber band filaments, steel filaments in this kind of pudding that kind of allows you to have this stuff that's stretchy but won't tear really easily. Okay? And when it's really thin and just kind of wrapped in your body, kind of spread out, we call it fascia, right? When it's a little bit thicker, but like a sheet, we call it aponeuroses, and we use that in areas that we stretch in lots of different directions, like my abdominal aponeuroses. We don't know if I'm going to twist, bend, extend. That's why I have aponeuroses there, like a sheet-like tendon. Then we've got ribbon-like tendon around things like my wrists and ankles, right? And we call that retinaculum. Then we've got where this fascia gets wound up completely like this. It's still fascia, but it's a rope, and it's hooked to a muscle down in my forearm, and that's like flexor retinaculum. I'm sorry, flexor profundus, pulling on a tendon and pulling my fingers down. But this is a tendon. And then we've got ligaments. Ligaments are the same darn thing, but they tend to just tie my bones together without muscle, just to make sure my bones don't fall apart. Like, I don't have to flex my arm to keep my arm on my body. There's all sorts of ligaments in there, making sure it stays on. And that's what ligaments do it. And you've actually got more ligaments than tendons. You've got ligaments everywhere. If we studied ligaments, you'd honestly have to stay here another 9 months just studying ligaments. They're everywhere. Everywhere. And they actually really give you a lot of the integrity of your body. And a lot of people, when they have injuries and they get ligamentitis, they get inflammation ligament, it's because They've overused their muscles and tendons, and those have given out, and the body's ligaments have to hold on. And after a while, they start to wear down and they start to get inflamed. So anyway, but it's all fascia, or it's all tendon, or it's all connective tissue. I like the term fascia. Yeah. Okay. Questions? Comments? Okay. All right. Let's stop recording this.